Alright everybody, today I wanted to talk a little bit about a new feature coming to Trainz, a little feature that I think a lot of us have been waiting for a very long time, and that feature is Multiplayer Surveyor. That's right, this is not an April Fool's joke this time, this is a real deal. I had the privilege of being invited last week to participate in the first closed beta test of Multiplayer Surveyor, and it was very exciting, and it seems very promising in my opinion. So I want to talk a little bit about that in this video. Unfortunately, I did try to record this whole test, and I was going to play it back and show you everything that I saw, but something went wrong with my recording software, and all of the footage came back completely choppy. So I'm just going to show you some stills to illustrate some of the points that I'm talking about. Before we get too far into this, I just want to put up a disclaimer here and let you guys know that this is an early beta test, and because of that, absolutely everything that I discuss in this video is subject to change. All of the features that I'm going to talk about and everything that is outlined is totally subject to change. It may be included, it may not be included. All the information that N3V has given to me could change, so please keep that in mind. And also keep in mind that there was a lot of bugs with this. You'll see in some of the screenshots that there's track that didn't render, or certain things didn't render. It's a very early beta test, so there's gonna be some issues. First things first here, this was a closed beta with about 10 or so of us, basically unleashed into a totally blank map, and we were allowed to just build whatever we wanted. And of course, what did we make? We made spaghetti, because what else do you do when you've just kind of been unleashed into a world and you don't really know what else to do? So we spent some time, each one of us, building terrain, laying down track, placing some buildings. The thing that I found most interesting about this whole experience was that nothing was off limits in terms of going into different areas and modifying something that somebody else had placed. So what I mean by that is if somebody went down and laid down some track nearby, I could go and level out the track or change the height of it. In fact, you're even able to modify track that trains are on top of. And I'll get a little bit more into that in just a moment. But I did really like how I could see the other players flying around, I guess, and modifying whatever it was that they were working on. I was really curious how this was going to be portrayed, because I am familiar with Minecraft servers and seeing other players, especially in creative mode, where you might be flying around and you see other player avatars kind of flying around, and we don't necessarily have that in Trainz. So it was interesting to see that each user was just a camera basically flying around, and I believe everybody was color-coded if my memory serves, and that will be further developed in the future with color-coded icons and grouping and that sort of thing. So speaking of that, another thing that I found really fascinating is the ability for the person who is hosting the route to control who is allowed to work on what. I think that this is really great when you want to sort of divvy out certain roles to certain people. So for example, if you've got some players on, let's say it's 10 people, you can have 2 people who are only allowed to modify track, 2 people who can only place buildings, 2 people who can only edit terrain, and so on and so forth. So you can limit what people are allowed to modify, so that you don't have to worry about somebody who has no idea what they're doing with track and signaling, messing around with it. So I think that that might be important for larger scale builds when you get into some of these massive routes, maybe like P&B size or even larger. This is where this sort of collaborative gameplay is really going to shine, is with massive routes. And maybe you don't want everybody who might be on there manipulating every single thing. Maybe you want, Timmy just to work on buildings and scenery because he's good at that, and not to touch the track because you like the way that the track is. So you lock in the track and you can keep it there and nobody else can mess with it. So I think that that's a really cool feature. And of course that can be modified throughout the process of the build. So the route owner can enable these things and disable these things as they feel is needed. Another feature that I think really is going to shine with this whole multiplayer surveyor thing is that it's not just multiplayer surveyor. At any time, any player can jump from surveyor into driver and take a train for a spin, and everything continues to function. And in fact, I actually found it even more seamless to go from surveyor to driver in this beta version of Multiplayer Surveyor than in the standalone version of Trainz 2019. There was no lag time. I literally pressed Control F2 or F1, whichever it is, to go into driver mode, and it was seamless. I was instantly in the cab of a locomotive, and just like in regular driver mode, you could jump from any locomotive to any other locomotive and take it for a spin. Once once you quote unquote claim it. If there's another user inside of a train, you will just sort of follow it. You'll be locked onto it as if you were driving it, but you are not able to actually control the engine. So I thought that was a really great feature, and that's going to be really cool to have for, again, some of these larger scale builds where maybe not everybody wants to be in a driver session, or maybe not everybody wants to be in the Surveyor editing session, but you can have people who are just almost live beta testing track arrangements while you make modifications. And in fact, at one point, I took control of a locomotive and drove it down a section of track as the track was being modified right in front of me. And conversely, there was a point towards the end where I had a train coming towards me, and I literally cut the track out in front of it and put a station in and spliced it all back together before the train arrived, and everything was pretty seamless and pretty smooth. So I think that that's a pretty neat feature, and I think there's going to be a lot of use for that on some of these mega builds and bigger long-term projects. It's going to help things kind of go a little bit faster and test things out a little bit more thoroughly early on. So just like me, right now you're probably wondering, how does all this work? Where is the route being hosted? Whose computer is it on? Is this similar to multiplayer driver? And the answer to that right now is a bit ambiguous that I got from the N3V staff. And this is all still in development, so everything that I say here is totally subject to change. Don't take what I'm saying right now as gospel. But essentially what it sounds like is that this is going to be a service that your route will be on a remote server computer hosted someplace else. So similar to how Minecraft servers can be hosted remotely. So we won't be limited to, somebody's own processing power on their own computer. It's not going to be hosted locally. And I think that that's a really great thing because you'll be able to have as much processing power as the server has, which hopefully should be quite a bit. So I did ask about what sort of limitations we might have in terms of route size, and right now it sounds like there is not going to be any limitation to the size of the route that you can build or the amount of assets that can be placed. So unlike City Skylines, there's not going to be an asset cap. The server will just continue to populate things within the region that each person is located in and not beyond that. So it's not going to load up like a 10,000 baseboard map all at once. It's only going to load up each individual area that a user might be kind of flying around in. The next question I had for them was, what kind of assets are we going to be able to use? And I know a lot of people are asking about that, and I'm being asked about that. And again, this is another answer that was a little bit ambiguous. I think they're still trying to develop what assets we're going to be able to use. But essentially, the answer that I got, that I think that this is how this works, is that you will basically create a pick list or a content database of assets that people are going to be able to use when they get onto your route. So what that means is it sounds like it's going to be download station assets, but there will be possible ability to use third-party assets. So if that's the case and third-party assets can be uploaded to this remote server and used for Surveyor multiplayer, like that's going to be a really great feature. But again, this is sort of an ambiguous thing right now where I'm not sure if they've totally figured out exactly what the asset restrictions are going to be. The beta test that we did, we only had about 100 assets to use, so it was extremely limited, but that's not the maximum amount of assets that you can have on there. There doesn't seem to be a limit, but I don't think that they are very confident right now in what the limit is going to be. We have to do a lot more testing. That's why we're beta testing. But that opens the doors for a whole lot of route building possibilities, that if we can get third-party assets on there as well as what's on the download station. So another thing that I forgot to mention about having your route on a remote server, the benefit of that is similar to Minecraft servers. The person who is hosting the route, who's the owner of the route, doesn't necessarily need to be on for other people to join in. So this will be something that is constantly running. So whoever is whitelisted will be able to hop on and hop off at their own leisure, so not everybody has to be on at the same time. That said, this does sound like it is going to be a premium service. They haven't worked out exactly how this is going to integrate into the rest of the game, but it does sound like, because this is going to be on a remote server, this will be sort of probably a monthly subscription or a yearly subscription or some sort of pay to play thing. And obviously that's going to have to be to support the servers and keep them running and maintained and that sort of thing. And that's the case with a lot of gaming servers as it is anyway, so it's not completely unheard of in this day and age, but they have yet to determine what the price points are going to be or anything like that. I think we're a long ways off before we cross that bridge about what the pricing is going to be, but this will be a premium service for Trainz 2019 Platinum Plus something, some sort of higher edition. And lastly, sort of within that vein of this being a premium service that is hosted on a server, there is talk of maybe somehow making it cross-platform. So they had mentioned allowing people on PC, Mac, iPad, all of these editions of the game get onto the same server and have it cross-platform. So that's certainly an interesting concept. If you're on a different device, or if you want to work on your project on the go, I would be interested to see how that all integrates. And that may not actually come to fruition. That's just sort of their goal and their hope right now. But I'd like to see where that goes and how they integrate that. But overall, I think that this shows a lot of promise, and I'm really looking forward to getting into more of the beta testing and seeing what else they come up with, what other features we can integrate, and maybe work on a more of a collaborative route rather than just being thrown into an empty baseboard and allowing us to go crazy. So it'd be interesting to see how working on more of a defined goal in the game, how things will pan out that way. I think that going forward, for the future of the game, this could be really great to see a lot of these bigger routes get done a lot faster, because I speak from experience. I've been working on the PNB for I don't even know how many years now, 10 years, something like that. And at this point, I'm passing it back and forth between myself and a friend of mine. And every time we pass it back, the CUID changes, and then I have to reset certain things. He does some stuff, I'm missing assets, he's missing assets, so on and so forth. So if we just had one central spot to put the route and we could both work on it at the same time, and maybe even bring in a couple other people who are more like specialists in certain things like signaling or track work, that project would get done a whole lot faster. And I think that as a whole, the Trainz community could definitely benefit from something like this. We would probably see a boom in content and routes available for the game, because it would just be able to get them done so much faster. So like I said, overall, I'm pretty optimistic about this. I think that you guys are really going to like it when it finally gets unleashed into the world. But check back here frequently as we do more beta tests. I'm going to continue to record things and update you when there's notable changes. And hopefully next time I can actually get some usable footage to include on this so you can actually see how this functions. So until then, thank you guys so much for watching. Leave a comment below. Let me know if you're excited for multiplayer Surveyor as well, and if you'll get it when it comes out. I'll see you guys in the next one.